the gain is one of the mechanisms of the Global Compact on Refugees, and it really demonstrates why the scholarly research is so important to informing the policy work. But let me put things in a global context, and I really like often to start with the Refugee Convention itself in 1951, which was designed at that time to deal with about 2 million people who were described in Europe as being forcibly displaced. And we saw these critical provisions being state responsibilities under traditional international treaty law. Today, we are reporting well over 103 million people forcibly displaced, about 32 million of them refugees. We have more than 50 protracted conflicts globally and 16 active emergencies and more really emerging. We have never seen this level of movement of peoples, whether internally displaced within their own country or across national boundaries seeking protection. We also have the phenomenon over the last decades that overwhelmingly, and most specifically at the moment, 74% of people displaced forcibly are provided protection. They are hosted by low and middle income countries that, of course, have their own challenges. Durable options, durable solutions are fewer and fewer. Historically, we have always been seen as the UN Refugee Agency for finding resettlement places. But in fact, the numbers of places are tiny. Fewer than 1% of refugees in need of resettlement are ever resettled. Returns to countries of origin are extremely difficult in the protracted conflicts that we see. Afghanistan, more than 40 years. Syria, its 12th year. 5-6 years for the Myanmar civil conflict, and of course the attacks on the Rohingya people, leading to nearly 1 million leaving and finding protection elsewhere, and others. But that is why, of course, we're depending so much more on the inclusion of refugees in those countries where they're being hosted. But that comes back to the point that they are hosted by poor and middle income countries, where that burden is a very significant one. And that brings us, of course, to the role of the Global Compact on Refugees. And what's exciting about that compact is that it builds on the state responsibility of the sovereign nation and expands the responsibility for burden sharing and equitable burden sharing and responsibility sharing to civil society, to multi-stakeholder groups, religious groups, localization through communities, through the voice of refugee-led groups, and particularly women-led refugee groups. But we've seen a whole of society approach now through the Global Compact on Refugees, and it's come at a time of great significance as the numbers of displaced have so massively increased, and as it's become imperative to place an emphasis on the need to ensure that the hosting countries are supported, and that there be, as I say, an equitable sharing of that responsibility to ensure that no one is left behind. Of course, civil society and their academia have a very key role to play. And I've mentioned again, we believe that their work is going to be critically important as we try to ensure a North-South collaboration academically and to promote a South-South collaboration. And we really do hope that we see more visibility to the Sergio de Mello chairs beyond predominantly in Latin America, and we see them being picked up by scholars throughout the world. And that leads me then to the Global Refugee Forum. One of the important elements of the Global Compact on Refugees is the fact that it is to be measured by evidence, by data, both at the high-level officials meeting we had last year, and of course the forum itself at the end of this year. What we need to be able to show through the indicator report is that the principal objectives of the Global Compact on Refugees are being measured accurately, so that it's not an anecdotal response, but one where we know what the impact has been because we have objective evidence. The aims, as you know, are to ease the pressure on host countries that I've mentioned, to enhance refugee self-reliance because they will have to be included in the economies and countries in which they've gained protection, to expand third country solutions, hopefully through regular pathways, education and labour mobility in particular, and to support conditions where we can for returns in safety and in dignity. So we will have, by the end of this year, an indicator report that looks at various 15 major indicators to see whether the evidence can demonstrate what we hope it will believe, and I believe will demonstrate, that there has been a level of equitable sharing of responsibility. It's not going to be perfect, but that is why we need the scholarship and the data from the on-the-ground field operations to ensure that we can report to our supporting states and to the wider global community that the compact is a mechanism, non-legal, voluntary, but is a mechanism that is effective in delivering the fundamental principle of equitable sharing. And can I say that although I've been talking about the refugee compact, it has become increasingly clear that we need to work as effectively as possible with IOM and the compact on migration. And we now have a new framework for strengthening that relationship, but particularly with regard to mixed movements and onward movements across many countries from people, both migrants and refugees seeking protection. It's increasingly important that we work collaboratively, and we are doing so in many, many contexts.